Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Neon AMA with Ivan Bjelac. Am I pronouncing it correctly? No, I'm not, right?
Do not, yes, please do not attempt. Even be live, yes.
Bjelac. I'm sorry about that. That is a challenging name. But hello, Ivan. Ivan has recently been appointed as the CEO of Neon Labs. For those of you who have followed Neon EVM, you know that Neon Labs is the software development company that is very much involved in the Neon EVM project, which is an open source project. So we work very closely with the Neon Labs team, and we're very excited to have you on this live stream, Ivan. Without further ado, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did your career start? And most importantly, how did you find yourself working in Web3 and crypto?
Well, thank you, Vanina, for me being here, in this AMA because I'm very excited about finally being able to talk more to the Neon community. The taking on the Neon CEO role was a big challenge and honor for me, and I'm looking forward to what that brings to all of us. I started off my career in 2001 as a back then what I believed to be an engineer. And after 10 or so years of doing engineering work, I got moved into more like tech executive roles, I guess. So I am an elder millennial or a boomer, somewhere over there, because I'm in my 40s. In Web3, that is mostly considered ancient. So before I, came into Web3 space, I was working in the different types of um, let's say internet industries, so going from being a system admin in hosting companies to helping build software as a service companies, and then in 2015 in one of our previous companies, because I was a part of several successful startup exits, and that particular company was acquired by GoDaddy in 2016. But before that acquisition, we wanted to also to try to have a second product to stand on. So we discovered that now there is something called Ethereum, and that caught our eye because we knew about Bitcoin, we knew about blockchain as a concept before, but the idea of a world computer on top of which you can build something became very exciting for us, when we heard. So we were like, let's see if we are able to build something on top of Ethereum. And the co-founder of that company, he believed, Vladimir Prelovec, he believed very much in disrupting email, and he suggested a project to build an email on top of Ethereum. So we ended up building a multimedia messaging service that was actually an Ethereum dApp. Back, the development took from early 2016 to early 2017, and it was a relatively popular dApp at the time. More than 1,000 people registered. They sent emails. We spent gas on people sending emails. Gavin Wood and the Ethereum Foundation back then gave us 20,000 ethers to use, for this to spend on emails. So I guess if we have a guy that is maybe sorry that he spent Bitcoin, on a pizza. I'm definitely a part of the group that spent 20,000 ethers on sending emails, and we didn't even get to eat those emails, but I guess it is what it is. The project was not financially successful, which you can conclude from what I just explained, but it got me completely hooked into thinking about moving fully into Web3 space. So I decided to completely focus on Web3 in 2018. I left GoDaddy and went full degen when it comes to building Web3 products. We worked on a number of, I think, over 50 different Web3 products over the years, and most of them were somehow involved in infrastructure. So I was also involved in the early days of Polygon with Mihailo Bjelic, who was our colleague and later the co-founder of Polygon. I was also considered the co-founder of Polygon Edge, which was their EVM client, the first one that they built for themselves. And I was very happy with what Polygon Edge did back in the day before Polygon decided to fully pivot into ZK. After that, I decided to try and move my talents into becoming an employee again. And I joined the company also started by my former employees called Tenderly. We are more or less, I think, developers know about Tenderly. Also, it's like Vercel for for Web3. So I ended up working in tooling and infrastructure space. We were able to scale revenue around 5 times since I joined in 2 years, and I had a VP of strategy role there. And after that, when Neon called, I was extremely interested in working on an EVM on top of Solana, considering the speeds of Solana and the core idea, behind Solana when it comes to having actually, a very fast and efficient blockchain where something like my email might have been able to live, back in the day. And thinking about it from that standpoint, I decided to definitely accept this role and to learn more about what are all of the challenges of Ethereum people crossing over to Solana ecosystem. So when I did that crossover, I would say that I definitely first of all start learning a lot more about Solana, because I believe that coming into Neon Labs and working on Neon EVM, that most of the problems that I will see are going to be classical EVM problems that I saw in other ecosystems. Here it's actually much different. Solana has so many advantages when it comes to speed, as I said, but the parallel execution environments also changes a lot of the business logic behind the dApps that need to run on Neon, and with Neon Labs, I think it's a uniquely positioned company with very strong backing and an extremely strong protocol engineering team. And since recently, we also added a ZK arm also. I believe we are uniquely positioned to help scale Solana both on SVM and EVM side. And there are going to be many things, I believe, to come in that regard in the next year or so, coming from our kitchen. But definitely for me, after being out of the CEO seat for 2 years, coming back into this kind of position was an extreme challenge when it comes to thinking about my priorities. Do I have the strength to do this? How will this look like when I take on another rodeo? But Neon Labs was just too hard of an opportunity to pass up for me. There were many reasons, both on technological and team side, during this entire process that made me fall in love with the idea behind this company, and I will definitely not, regret the decision to join it. I already see that.
I'm glad to hear that. And also, excuse me, sir, are you an MEV bot? Because you just front run my question. That was going to be my next question, and you just answered
That's the nature of being a CEO.
what.
You try to answer everything, even when you are not asked. And me knowing, the marketing behind the Neon very well, I would say that I was able to predict some of the things based on experience.
That's amazing. That's amazing. This is the kind of collaboration that we need in this space. We need more projects being on the same wavelength and understanding each other from literally a single word. I'm gonna roll back the tape a little bit because again, you talked a lot about your experience and you've been deeply involved with so many different aspects of crypto and so many different ecosystems. What were the biggest challenges that you have faced? And you talked about like the different EVM challenges that we see in the space, and also about specific problems that are specific to Solana that we're currently trying to solve through tech. What are the biggest challenges that you have seen for us as builders in the space, and for the overall blockchain adoption?
That is, a $1 trillion question. Because I think that when we talk about blockchains, for me, I always viewed blockchains as doing to the internet or the fault tolerant systems on top of the internet the same thing that internet did to computer networks. So we had computer networks before the internet, but before blockchain and the whole Web3 space, we really didn't have a chance to see fault tolerant systems um, across the world, and people permissionlessly entering them and using them the way that we see people use them now. But the problem with that is, in a lot of ways, fault tolerance distributed systems are also the most expensive way for you to have a database. So we solved one part of that equation, bringing them to the world through the internet, but we still haven't solved the fact that the infrastructure behind them and therefore the tooling and everything else that you need to build such an ecosystem is extremely expensive. So in a lot of ways, us just adding more blockchains on top of each other, can help certain use cases. And I am personally a big believer in the app chain thesis as such. But I do not think that, you know, and I like this about Solana very much. Solana wants to be a monolith. And there are things that are much easier for you to build in this case when you are building on top of a monolith. I mentioned I was with Tenderly as VP of strategy, for 2 years. Tenderly did an amazing job, bringing tooling and infrastructure to Web3 developers at an affordable cost without everything breaking. But Tenderly still invests a lot of money in the infrastructure on the networks themselves. It is subsidized for that by the networks, and we are still in this position where if you want to have thousands of blockchains that all want to support this tooling, we are having 1,000 times the same costs. And what got me and I think that's in many ways tooling and infrastructure companies in blockchain space are basically added value services on top of hyperscalers. So we are like when you are coming from the position of a tooling and infrastructure company in blockchain, you are actually in many cases an added value reseller for AWS or GCP, which is not, it doesn't sound as sexy as being an infra and tooling company on top of a blockchain. So with what the Neon did, and I never saw anyone do that before I saw, Neon EVM, and before I met people from Neon Labs and Neon Foundation. What Neon did with the idea of network extensions and acting basically as a co-processor to Solana itself, but still using Solana's consensus, still using Solana's block space, so that if you are indexing Solana, you are in many ways also indexing what the Neon is doing, because it settles on Solana in the end. No other approach in Web3 space did it that way. Sidechains are sidechains, L2s are L2s, but network extensions are something that was not actually tried before. And at the time that Neon started, L2s were not that popular. It was not what it is today with the Cambrian explosion of L2s. So I think that Neon coming and being a pioneer for something that I personally consider a much better approach than building L2s, which are network extensions, I think that might be the solution for a lot of the hard problems that I had with all of this in the past. And most of these problems came from the fact that whenever you are trying to build a new blockchain, be it an EVM blockchain or something else, you are rebuilding the whole infrastructure from scratch instead of maybe just having a very specific use case that you want to execute on one of the big monolith chains.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of that and of the innovation of network extensions, who would you say is the ideal client of Neon EVM? Who is Neon EVM built for?
Right now, I would say Neon is an amazing way for Web3 developers from Ethereum ecosystem that maybe learn Solidity, or because there are so many resources to learn Solidity, including the bootcamps that Neon team itself organizes. Uh, if they want to bring their dev to Solana and try out Solana ecosystem, Neon is amazing for them. The big, more established, dApps, I think there are still a lot of changes, that need to be made in business logic, because of Solana itself. This is going to be an interesting challenge for Neon and Neon Labs to solve in the future, because I think that there are ways for us to make many of the things we are doing a more look more like a Solana native experience even for the big dApps. But right now, I would say if you are new to EVM and also want to try Solana, this is great for you. Or if you have a successful dApp on top of Ethereum that wants to try out Solana, Neon is an amazing place for you to, become a part of Solana's ecosystem, to tap into Solana's huge user base, with over 4 million active people per day. Uh, but maybe we still need some work to do before we are ready for Neon to process the biggest dApps in Ethereum's ecosystem when it comes to them also tackling Solana. I think the reason for this is, Neon started basically at the end of 2021. It was built with the idea of Solana and Ethereum from 2022, and the DeFi explosion from back then. But over the last 3 years, both Solana and Ethereum diverged quite a bit, and the business logic behind the big dApps also kind of went in a different direction. I believe that this is not a lost cause, of course, and Neon Labs already has a couple of solutions in our sleeve, how to make all of this, I would say, a lot better for the end user, and to see, can we even bring on the biggest Ethereum players in the near future onto Solana through Neon EVM. But as I said, the also the core concept of network extensions that was pioneered during the building of Neon EVM is something we are also going to be heavily focused on, because I think we are kind of a unique company in Solana ecosystem, because we consider ourselves in many ways both Ethereum and both SVM, and we already noticed through all of the innovation that was done on the support of the scaling of the EVM side on top of Solana. We actually started noticing that there are things we can do to also solve some of the problems uh, on the SVM side too. Some of these problems are actually underlying Solana challenges that are stopping Solana as such from having equal or better DeFi to Ethereum. And there is no reason for Solana not to have at least equal DeFi to Ethereum, considering the fact that it has probably around 20 times more active daily users than Ethereum, although Ethereum does have more TVL. But at the end of the day, for me, the main metrics here are not about the TVL, but the number of people actually actively using the chain. And I think the opportunity because of that is huge. If we are able to unlock both SVN and EVM even more to better DeFi opportunities on Solana, I think with Neon we can have a really exciting type of an ecosystem that was not seen before.
Right. Yeah, I think that operating on the intersection between EVM and SVM, you can't really focus on just one part of things. And as you said, inevitably, when we're trying to bring on more projects by EVM developers onto Solana, we would have to, at a certain point, we would have to address Solana inefficiencies as well and kind of like figure out how to solve those. Um, and I believe that the Neon Labs team, as well as the Neon EVM teams, are two of the most qualified teams when it comes to both EVM and SVM development. So we're all very excited to see what's coming ahead. And speaking of that, yeah, as we established, you have done so much impressive work. You have scaled startups. You have advised governments, if I am not mistaken. You have dabbled a little bit in AI. You've built core infrastructure for different layer ones and layer twos. What is, according to you and based on your experience, what's the most misunderstood part of leading in crypto? I know that we have seen a lot of examples of companies that have failed because of lack of product market fit. We've seen companies fail because they didn't ship on time. We've seen companies fail because of bad management. What is your take on that?
Well, I think that in many ways, the reason why crypto is still kind of a early evangelist industry, is that it comes from a set of principles that we can accept or deny. And in many ways, blockchains are amazing, but at the same time we need to accept that the fact that we believe we have solved some problems technically with the blockchain does not mean that that is necessarily true. There are many use cases where having um, a blockchain can be amazing if done properly, but we also need to assess that blockchain from an end user perspective and from the actual use case perspective as such, because there are many reasons why I thought in the past that on a public permissionless blockchain it is not possible to write a business continuity procedure in many ways. For example, because I wrote a lot of business continuity procedures in my lifetime, and you cannot start off by saying the fault tolerant system is self-repairing by nature, so I can never have the situation where I believe that this system will not stop working. If you believe that the fault tolerant system by itself is business continuity or a solution for the infrastructure not to ever go down, then you are in a position where you are unable to actually fix anything, because you are starting from this position that the trust in the infrastructure is enormous. And the trust in the infrastructure is not just the number of validators of this and how they are geographically or technologically distributed. It's also how many actual clients do we have, how many code bases are going into the core of all of this, etc., etc. There is a reason why every blockchain wants to have a better Nakamoto coefficient, that is supposed to show off not just how decentralized you are, but how resilient you are, to certain types of attack. And I thought because of this, the cap theorem tells us that you cannot, of course, have consistency and availability at the same time. And I always kind of accepted because of that the fact that we are going to need object specific blockchains, in order to have a lot of corporate use cases. But then I saw both the network extension approach, and I saw Van Tolly's actual, basically lecture around the cap theorem, and he said something that made me think a lot, because it was something, first of all, I never heard from a distributed systems person. It was something that I also never heard from another Web3 engineer or a Web3 person as such. And what Tolly basically said about Solana is that if we are looking at the cap theorem and we say, well, I want to have both consistency and availability in the same time, let's think about it in statistical truth terms, and thinking about what happens if I am practically never in a partitioned state. And I think that is an interesting way of viewing, at this, because almost no blockchain is, suitable for something to suitable to be basically formally verified. When we are talking about blockchains, we are talking about statistical truth. So why wouldn't we be able to consider partitioning basically a statistical truth also? And the reason why I'm saying about this, as I'm talking about what is misunderstood behind crypto, is we could never have the vision of Solana around internet capital markets without this idea that we can have a blockchain that will practically not exist in a partition state, or where the partition will solve itself so quickly that you will not be able to notice. So I think right now people think that the reason why Ethereum has more TVL than Solana is because it was first, there are more dApps there, etc., etc. It is partially true. But I think that what actually is currently stopping Solana from having bigger TVL on Ethereum is the fact that Solana is successful in solving the idea of internet capital markets and making Solana faster and faster based on what I just said. But at the same time, it is much harder because of this uh, to build a very complex fintech or DeFi system or another type of a computer program on top of Solana than it is on top of Ethereum. So we do have Ethereum as the world computer that is very slow, but it's able to handle complex things. But Solana to me is the only public permissionless blockchain that can handle these huge volumes without breaking and work while also practically having the availability and consistency at the same time. But it suffers when it comes to our ability to build stuff on top of Solana natively that are as complex as Ethereum projects. So I think the fact that Solana moved into this space and decided to double down in internet capital markets means that if we want to keep this vision alive, then we do not want to build L2s on Solana, or to think about bringing Ethereum solutions of Solana. We need Solana native solutions for this, and this is why I keep talking about network extensions. If someone asks me, is scaling blockchains going to be fixed by L2s or by ZK? I think that it is actually going to be fixed by their little brother, and to me their little brother is actually network extensions. And like Nikola Jokic, is playing much better basketball than two of his older brothers, and is winning MVPs. This is my prediction, for network extensions in the future, becoming the dominant way how we extend blockchains for more complex programs that can also be legally compliant, that can go into all of these other things. There are other misunderstood things, I think, around privacy and scaling, etc. But I think, to me, this is the one that very few people are talking about compared to privacy right now or other stuff. So I would prefer, not to go with everyone's answer, and actually use this as an opportunity to double down on adoption through network extensions.
Is this where you want to see Neon Labs in 12 months from now,
I would say,
dominating Solana through extensions?
yeah, I would say that. I think that Solana is uniquely amazing for its ability to primarily be extended by network extensions. Ethereum already has L2s. I think some of them are doing a great job. We want, because of this, and because it is actually a harder technical problem, we definitely want to focus on Solana in this regard. We believe this will help scale more complex applications, both on EVM and SVM side of things in this manner. And I want to see Neon Labs there in 12 months, but also in 5 and 10 years.
Amazing. Amazing. Glad to hear that. We're very much aligned. This message has been EVM, Neon EVM approved. Um, and moving on to the wider ecosystem and the bigger picture. We have seen a lot of startups tackling AI, a lot of projects in blockchain, a lot of projects in payments, and kind of like linking together Web 2 and Web 3 payments, with the X 401 protocol being the hot topic recently. Where do you see the sweet spot of that intersection between payments, blockchain, and AI?
Well, I mean, when you there was this old internet meme, like, on the internet no one knows you're a dog. And then, blockchain used to have its own version a blockchain. No one knows you are a fridge, because the idea with blockchains from day one was around agentic payments, but in terms of agent to agent. So I think that there is this thing about blockchains that is uniquely great about providing trust for human or computer players to become a part of the same ecosystem. And this is something coming. Is it a year or two away, or a little bit more? I'm not sure, of course, but I think that without a blockchain and a fault tolerant internet, there is no real agentic future. And I do believe that we are going to end up with agents handling most of the financial transactions at some point. So I wouldn't call it really the dead internet thesis, but there is probably an extended internet thesis, somewhere over there.
But it's definitely happening on Solana, correct?
Well, I think uh, so. My response here is going to be a little bit so and so. First of all, I believe Solana as an internet capital market chain is probably the best place to do this. I do see a lot of companies are going to probably start off by first trying to build their own thing. What I think will move people away from this is, at the end of the day, is that on Solana you should be able to have a much more natural experience, from moving into from one wallet to another. There is a bit less need for things like bridging, or cross-chain things. And the other thing is, all of these companies starting their own chains are going to very soon realize how expensive that game is. Not everyone will want to play that game. Yes, probably some of them will stay, but I do believe that community chains such as Solana, and probably even specifically Solana, when we look at the size of the actual user base, um are in a much better position to do this because they have their own reason of existence outside of that one app for payments, etc., etc. And it's much easier if everything you are doing is a part of the same ecosystem.
All right. And then you personally, where do you want to see Solana in the foreseeable future? Do you think 2026 is the year when it outperforms Ethereum?
This is a good question. What I want to see from Solana, I guess, is uh, all of the things that we are now talking about in terms of BAM, ACE, etc., actually happening so that Solana on core speed can compete or outperform other more centralized players. And I think that if the internet capital market thesis of Solana proves to be correct, and currently I believe in that thesis more and more, the more and more I'm the part of Solana space, then I do believe that Solana can become uh, the Web3 version of Robinhood for all types of assets. Will it happen in 2026? For all assets, probably too soon. But I would love for Solana in 2026 to prove to everyone that it is the best place to put those assets. And right now, we are still because all of the real world assets are not yet there to actually trade. All of the stock is not yet there to trade. Then we end up with people building their own chains to hyperscale high frequency trading, and to me that is less important than what we can get from an ecosystem such as Solana basically becoming the primary place for us to trade all kind of assets, and then for people also to build on top of network extensions, preferably those built by Neon Labs, in order to also use that market to extend it with more complex programs without congesting Solana or breaking it. So in many ways, I like to view the extensions as a co-processor of the main chain, and I think this is the direction that we are heavily going to take. And hopefully, when people start talking about uh, Solana exploding in 2026 or 2027, they will also say that Neon and Neon Labs were a part of that explosion in some way.
That's what we're working towards. We're trying to push both EVM and EVM dApps and Solana forward. All right. We're going to move on to a rapid fire series of questions. Let's see what we've got here. Phantom or MetaMask?
Solflare.
Solflare. Okay. Okay.
I
You heard
have
it
to
here.
shout out Victor and the fellow Serbians. So, definitely for me, it's Solflare, then Phantom, then
All right.
somewhere MetaMask.
The most underrated infra team in crypto.
Ooh, this is a hard one. Uh, First of all, because I know that there are many people who do not even rate these teams or understand what they are building. But right now, I'm actually going to go with a person and say Andrei Felaev. And those who do not know who he is, Google.
That is the CTO of Neon Labs.
You quickly Googled. Yes, that is.
I am familiar. I am a fan following. All right. One Web2 thing, one traditional Web2 thing that we desperately need to steal in Web3.
Logins and dealing with passwordless.
Yes, I am 100% with you on this one. The Neon ecosystem in one sentence.
Full of potential.
Amazing. And last but not least, pizza on pineapple. Sorry, pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh my God, that's such a Serbian thing to say, right?
Yes, I have many things that discussed my Italian friends, even those working with me at Neon Labs.
I know it's weird, but I'm Bulgarian. In Bulgaria, we do like our pineapple on the pizza as well. So I'm with you on this one as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Ivan, for taking time in your busy day, for being with us, so that we can introduce you to the wider neon community. It has been a wonderful conversation, and we look forward to having you again. And in the meantime, subscribe, follow us on socials to make sure you never miss any development coming out of Neon Labs and the Neon EVM teams. Thank you so much, Ivan. Thanks everyone for tuning in. See you soon.